Hi, it's 10 o'clock on a Wednesday, so why not? Why not start your mid morning by who knows what's going to happen here today on Dyson Dungeons? Maybe some painting, some sanding, some sighing. As progress continues on the Lotus-Ford, maybe I'll show you what has happened so far later if I feel brave enough to reach over all of this to the box full of stuff that's mostly done. But it's getting down to all sorts of little miscellaneous bits and pieces and things like that. Like these tiny little bits that are all chrome plated that have sprue marks on them and need to be painted so that they're not chrome because the stuff on the real car wasn't chrome. Or these that need to be checked out to make sure that the seams are gone, or at least relatively, well enough. And this, which is now yellow, I painted that yesterday, and I'll talk more about yellow stripes on green cars or yellow stripes underneath green paint. And then this, which is the third wheel of the four, that I'm going to unclamp and hopefully find that the tire is not broken. And I'll cement together the fourth one. In fact, I'll probably, there's just all this little stuff to do. And then I did get some 6mm tape, which is supposed to be the width of the stripe, but it looks narrow. So I'm gonna have to measure that and see what's going on. I'm not quite sure how that's all going to play out. We'll find out by doing it, I guess. And it'll either work or it won't. Yeah. As these things tend to. I'm going to try to do today. This is what the plan is. As you know, the plan, the ambition, the hopes, the probably unrealistic expectation is that I will have a wheel and a tire that's not broken. I'll get the fourth one cemented together. These will be just fine, maybe. And if they are, then I will paint them green because that's what needs to happen to them. They need to become green now that they're primed, if they're okay. The inside of this, the part that you can't see because it's underneath, is going to be painted aluminum because it's made out of aluminum. That's how the car is made. And then I can, now that it's primed, I can see that there's just a fault there, just on the edge. The edge is uneven. This is going to be painted green, except for right here, where there will be a yellow stripe. So this one, once it gets into the painting mode, will be painted yellow, like that, and then taped over and striped, if the process works. But now that I primed it, I can see there's just little bits, like here, okay, right there, where you can see that there's a lump of something that shouldn't be there, that needs to be sanded off. A little bit of a roughness along the front here. It's mainly on the edges, so I don't have to reprime it. But, it's just something. And then these, I'll need to clean these up. There's one part in here, which is kind of, they call it the Nerf bar, which is kind of like a rear bumper that is broken. One side is broken and the other one is barely hanging on. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of plug away at this. One thing I'm not going to do today is I'm not going to tape this. After experimentation, it became clear that the yellow paint, it pretty much covers the white primer, but it didn't cover the green paint very well at all. And so in order to get the yellow stripe, stripe, the important part of the car. Have to paint it yellow first and then tape over where the stripe is going to stay and paint the rest green. And then when you take the tape off, hopefully the paint will stay on and there will be a yellow stripe on a green car. And this is the tail cone, the thing that goes at the very, very back of the car. The stripe goes around it. I'm not going to tape this today because I just painted this yesterday and I just want this to set for a while. I want the paint to be thoroughly cured before I tape it so that when I take the tape off, the paint doesn't come off too, which can happen. Okay, well, that's only like 6 minutes. Yeah, I used to be able to talk for like a half an hour about stuff before I actually started doing things. It's down to like less than 10 minutes. I don't know what's up with that. So I'm going to mainly be talking about what I'm doing and how it's either working or not working. And then maybe I'll be able to get around to just, meandering off and talking about vacuum tubes or something. I don't know. Okay, well, it didn't come apart and the tire is not split. One of the front tires split. That was not good. There is a need for touch-up, a lot of touch-up of the paint because it doesn't adhere to the chrome very well. And you can barely see it on this one. But it's actually pretty decent on this one, is that there are raised letters saying Firestone that I managed to get white. I managed to get them white. And I'm going to try that again. I'm going to clean these off thoroughly and get the chalk, the white chalk out, white charcoal really, and attempt to do this again. And if you really can't see it, but there's a raised rim around here, you can kind of see it. That's supposed to be yellow. So I'll try to do that too. I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to get the cementing done on this one. Before I do that, I need to take them apart, even though they're kind of together, but not. That's why they're clamped, because they don't stay together tightly enough. This one kind of ironically is fairly tight. I need to take the paint off of the surfaces that are going to be the contact surfaces here and here. So when they're cemented together, the cement will hold, which it doesn't do. It doesn't do if they are painted. They gradually make these pieces of sandpaper smaller and smaller as I use them. Oh, yeah, that's good. Reach over the coffee cup. It's always a good idea to reach over the coffee mug and catch it with your sleeve, because then really exciting things happen, like it gets knocked over and spills. Yep. There I am. Pretty exciting sanding. Hitting the paint and the chrome plating. Yeah, the model cement really does a number on the chrome plating too, because it dissolves that. So the chrome plating, which I've said over and over and over again and will continue to say, is not historically accurate, which is why I'm mainly making it go away, and I'm painting it instead with mainly aluminum paint, which is, mainly the material that was used on the car. But the chrome plating, it's uneven, among other things. So it just makes lumps and bumps. It's historically inaccurate, and it dissolves in the cement. So that if the cement gets onto the surface at all, it bubbles up. And then there are discontinuities in it as well because of where these parts were attached to the sprue, the plastic trees. Okay. The chrome plating has to come off when the little sprue marks come off. So I don't know how they managed to get the model on the box cover to look the way it did. I do know that when I built this kit, not the original kit, back in the mid 1966, 67, something, when it first came out, when I first built it, I didn't care about that. I just put lots of cement on it and the parts stuck, And if no one got very close to it, it sort of looked like the race car. But now I'm, trying to make it look good, and it just takes more time. There. Nice. That has now fallen. Fortunately. Okay. That's practice. That was a practice event because when I start cleaning up these tiny little bits, there's a good chance that they will fall and be much harder to find than this was. So when I work on those, I'm going to work on them inside of a box. That's a thing I've done before, and it kind of works. It's a little bit awkward, but when I drop the piece, and it's never really a question of whether, it's just when I will drop the tiny little piece. I'm putting a 600 on here so I know what grit it is, because when I cut a strip off, it's not there anymore. Yes, so when I drop a piece, it will fall into the box and not onto the floor or parts of the workbench where I can't reach it. That's the idea anyway. The cement goes on the rim here. The nice thing is that it's very well hidden, and I want there to be a lot of it because there's the tire pushes out against the contact. Okay. So I want this to be welded all the way around. The same thing goes with the other side. This one's a little bit trickier. I've done this, this is the fourth one, and you would think by the time I get to the fourth one that I'd have some sort of technique down to pick this up and put it in place without getting cement all over my fingers and surfaces where it shouldn't go. But I don't have that technique. So far, 2 out of 3 have been okay, and 1 was not. Let's see what happens with the one. Okay, now that went in all right. Now I need to clamp it. Not like Bob Clampett, the cartoon guy, or Jed Clampett, you know, on the TV show, but clamp it. Just right for 3 of these to go on so that it's clamped pretty tightly and evenly all the way around. And if the tire stays intact, on Friday I will have 4 tires and wheels, and I can then try to restore the white raised Firestone lettering, which gets messed up in this process. And like every other time I've done this, now I've got this big awkward thing, which looks actually pretty cool. But I've got this big awkward thing that needs to go somewhere on this workbench where I just have stuff piled up all over. I suppose I could just put it on top of this box back here, which contains the parts that are done that I would like to show you, but I'm not going to because I just put that on top of it. Okay, this thing is just really awkward sitting here like this, but I don't know what else to do with it. I don't really want to lay it down. I want the paint to not be in contact with anything. So I guess I'm just going to reach over here. Oh, that's the... Here, if I do it this way, you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm putting it in a place where odds are only like maybe 5 to 7% that I'll bump it. An extra clamp. Put that over there where it's sort of out of the way. Clean this up. It looks like I should get a lot done today in terms of cleaning up these little bits, but if you've been watching this stream at all, and the pace at which I work and how I drop things and then have to find them and stuff, this could take a long time, or maybe not. I don't know. But I've got these bits. Let me move on to these bits first. I want to inspect them to see if, the seams are pretty well covered. I'm going to say that these are ready. These are ready to be painted green. And I will do that over the weekend. These are some of the very, very last things to go onto the vehicle to be attached. Some of the very last bits. Awkward to paint. Does they need to? Okay, I'm going to do it this way. Why not do it this way? So just like the yellow nose cone that I was showing you, you can see there was a popsicle stick stuck up into it. I used some sticky tack to hold it on. And I'm going to do the same with these because they need, and if it was just painted on the sides like this, that's fine, but it needs to be painted underneath here as well, which means I need to hold it and turn it while I'm painting it. I'm going to do a thing. So this is just little sticky tack stuff. Fun tack. Okay, it's fun tack. Wow, you can use it on all sorts of things. Paper, wood, tile, linoleum still, cinder block even, bricks, metal, and fortunately plastic. And it's non-toxic, so that if I have fun with this, if someone were having so much fun with this that they wanted to eat it, hi, Aman. How was your trip? Did you? How did you get there? By the way, did you take the train or did you drive? No, yeah. I guess you didn't tell us that, but I'm glad you had a. I'm glad you're back. Oh, was it? You know, there are some times. I meant almost to talk about that. There are some times when things just. Uh huh. Okay, good. Sometimes when things just don't go right. Oh, what happened? No, that was a dumb thing to do. I should have. I should have just cut it off instead of breaking it. I need to sand it flat. Oh no. Yeah, that's right. You can get. We always get paper tickets because I don't trust apps, but that's because I'm old and I don't trust them. Oh no. So she bought you a ticket. Okay, so you got yours. Okay. Oh, that was like a night train. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I can see you're getting pretty anxious at that point. Getting to waste time sanding down this thing that I could have prevented if I just cut it off instead of breaking it. If you want a nice clean edge to something, don't just snap it. It's not going to be nice clean edge. That's a how-to tip coming from someone who just showed you how not to do that. So then what happened? So you did it. You bought it. You had your own ticket. Okay, finally you got hold of it. Well, at least that happened, but quite a mess. You got to the train okay? The ticket was fine? Huh, okay. Well, that's fair. I mean, since at least you didn't have two tickets, or maybe you did. Oh, yeah. I imagine not. Hopefully you'll get the refund. Okay. So I am doing this at all is that I'm going to put some sticky tack on the end of this and put it up into the inside of that so I can hold it like that and manipulate it and get the green paint all over everywhere where it needs to go. And what's up with this? Just cleaning this out on the inside, which I should probably do before I paint it. Oh, no, one of the cars came off up in the first class. Well, I suppose it's, if you're going to have a problem, why not have it be a first class problem? That's pretty funny. Oh, wow, over an hour late. So what happened to the people who were riding up there? Did they have to put on a new car, or did they just not get where they were going? I never heard of that happening. Well, I mean, I can see how it could happen, but I have never experienced it. Oh, okay. Well, I imagine they were pretty grumpy about it. They paid extra for a ticket, and then that was all crowded in the second class compartments, I bet, too. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty good that it was first class. I mean, why not? If somebody has to be grumpy, let it be them. I have a mess here. Okay, so you didn't have to deal with them sitting trying to squeeze into where you were being grumpy about it. That's good. Oh, you got your refund. Good. I'm glad to hear that. And you made a profit. So the sticky tack is pretty sticky. I used it once on the surface of something, and it stays sticking. Okay. So when I put this on the inside here, some of the residue is going to remain inside. Is just going to. I mean, that's just going to be a thing, but the inside is going to be invisible. That is not going to be invisible. That's going to be where the cement goes, so that has to come off. Eventually, that'll be sanded off, so I'm not too worried about it, but I'm kind of ticked off that it happened. I thought I had a little bit of sticky tack on there, but it turned out there was more than enough. Like I said, that's going to get sanded off anyway, down to the bare plastic, because it needs to be cemented onto the car. So what I know when I do the next one is I need like half this much. Okay, so come visit you. Oh, you flew back instead of taking the train? I'm really kind of torn about which way is best when I travel like that, because I find, I like taking the train. It's just, you go to the train station, you get on the train, right? You don't have to go through 3 levels of security and airports, and the seats are better. Yeah, but that's the thing, is it takes so much longer. Yeah, it just takes way longer. So, I guess it just depends if you're in a hurry or not. or if you just don't mind taking the extra time. There are sometimes when we have visited Germany, we've usually flown into Frankfurt because that's where that's the major hub for international flights coming into Germany. And then if we go somewhere from there, usually we've taken the train because we're all jet lagged. You didn't have that because you're mostly in the same time zone. But when there's a 6-hour difference and it's like a long flight, 8 or 9 hours, you're going to feel pretty terrible when you land. And so we kind of like to take the train, even though it might take 4 or 5 hours to get someplace instead of 1, because then we just fall asleep on the train. I found that to be kind of pleasant, really. So the thing about these is that if I put them on alligator clips, which I'm going to do, because they need to be held up, and I need to take the yellow cone off the alligator. Oh, I know. Okay, duh. I'm just not thinking. You can do that. So here I am these are little bits. This is the roll bar that goes on the back of this. This is the exhaust that goes on the very tail end of it. This is a seat that goes in here. This is the radiator that goes in the nose. And this is the cone that goes in the very back of the car. And I'm going to take it off the stick. Guess not. I was just going to set it down, but by taking it off the stick, the sticky tack is pulling the tape out. Yeah. Just sometimes nothing goes right. I can tell a story about that. So you had a nice trip, though. Here, I'm just going to push it down. Hold it down with this. Wow, the sticky tack is really sticky. Holy cow. There. The sticky tack is still in there, which I'm going to need when I paint it green after the stripe is taped on. But right now, I just want to set it in here like this. There. You can see that the exhaust is a flat yellow, and this is glossy. That's the way it's supposed to be. So that's what I did. Okay. So the reason I did all of that. Oh, yeah. Sometimes plans, things just don't always work out the way you'd like to have them work out. I was going to talk about that today, that, see, this is just an old block of wood with holes that were drilled into it because I was drilling holes in the top. And when you drill a hole, especially through a thin piece of wood or metal, especially wood, you want it to be against another piece of wood so it doesn't all splinter on the backside. That's a how-to tip. Not about model making, but about drilling holes in wood. That's why there's holes here, because this piece was used for it's like 50 years worth of getting beat up with little holes. But it works really well because they're just about the right size for alligator clips. So I'm going to paint these, be rotating it like that, spray painting it green, and then putting it in here so the paint can dry. So I had that start actually yesterday morning. The sequence of, everything is going wrong. There was just a whole bunch of that yesterday. It just kept going, and that's why I'm being really cautious today, because I'm really not sure if that trend of everything going wrong is going to continue or not. And none of it was like a huge disaster. Not a huge disaster. It wasn't awful, like somebody got hurt or anything like that. But it was just like stuff just kept breaking. The garage door broke. It was like, no, it worked just fine. I left. Fortunately, it broke when one of the vehicles was outside. That's how I discovered it was broken. I drove back up to it after going to a place that turned out not to be there anymore. That was good. I was trying to do electronic recycling, and I got to the electronic recycling place, and it had this tiny little sign on the door saying, "Big news. We're not here. We don't know where we're going to be. Check our Facebook page." So I wasted about 45 minutes, almost an hour driving there and back because, I have to get to the electronic recycling place, and then the garage door didn't work. So I discovered, I knew this, there's a big spring on the garage door that helps bear the weight of the door when you open it and close it. Okay. And the spring had snapped. It just broke. Then things went okay. There were the people who do garage doors happened to be in the neighborhood that day. I guess that was okay. I guess that was good that, it stopped things stopped breaking and going wrong. And it was, somebody's here, right here. They can come over in a couple hours. And they did. And they fixed it. It was amazing. It wasn't cheap, but, the garage door opens and closes so we could get the vehicle in before the storm hit. So who did the cooking? A birthday barbecue. Did your friend do the cooking? Okay, I'm going to clean this up because there's some rough edges that I discovered. Just the edges that need to be straightened out, literally straightened out. They're just bubbles. And then I'm going to paint the inside of this aluminum, at least the first coat. And yeah, let me do the filing on this first. Straightening out the edges. Oh, nice. I bet that was really good. Was it a nice day? To have probably, well, if you were barbecuing, you're outdoors. So hopefully you had really good weather too. There's just roughness around the edges that will look not very good when it's painted. Ooh. Yeah, it was really hot here. We were in centigrade or Celsius. We were over 38 yesterday in certain places. Our house is in kind of a wooded area, and so it stays a little cooler, but it was really, really hot. There were heat warnings and advisories. So I'm glad it cooled down. Otherwise, it can be pretty uncomfortable, even dangerous being outside if it's too hot. It finally cooled off a little bit today. In Fahrenheit, which is what we use here, there were places when I was out going to the place that wasn't open, okay, when I was making that fruitless trip, that pointless trip, just before the garage door broke, it was 102 Fahrenheit on where I was. But we live in kind of a wooded area, so it was much cooler. It was only about 91. But this morning it cooled down. It was only 70 something. It was the first time we'd been below 80 even at night in a while. No, I mean, if you drink a lot of liquids and stay in the shade sometimes, you can get through it. But it's really, you can get into trouble really fast when it's that hot out. Okay. Yeah, I decided not to fill in these circles underneath here because this goes over the engine. Okay. I mean, it's next to impossible to see this one. But these back here, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to do what I said I wasn't going to do is I'm going to reach over, get this box here. Can't even lift up a box. Such a big deal. This is going to go like this. I'm just checking to see if I can see those little divots underneath there. I can see them. If I twist and turn it, I can see them, but I don't, it's not a real problem. This part just doesn't fit. Okay, I'm going to have to. Why am I? Okay, this is not what I was planning to do. This part is supposed to be wider. I don't know if you can see this, but the green paint is up to the edge, and then it's aluminum, right? Because the inside of the car is aluminum, and the paint is only on the outside. And when this other part goes on along here, it goes right up to the edge. But this part doesn't fit. No, it doesn't. You can see the aluminum edges here. And what it should be is it should be wider. Okay. It should be wider so that when it goes on, okay, it's supposed to fit like that, right up to the edge. But when it fits right up to the edge on this side, it's way far from the edge on this side because basically this thing needs to be wider. I'm making a bad sound here. I'm really frustrated by this sound. What can I do? I can heat it up, try to spread it out. I can, when I cement it on, I can cement one side on where it's supposed to be flush with the edge. Okay, I could do that. and then push the other side out. Maybe I could, or maybe there's some way of spreading it out. Maybe there's some way of, there might be. Because what I don't want to do, stupid metal axle. At least these parts haven't fallen off. That's good. What I don't want to do is paint these bits here. What I want to do is have this part fit the way it should. So what I'm thinking is, just as an example, is getting a piece of, like just this. Maybe I'm going to even try that. This could turn out to be a really bad idea. I don't know. Or it could just be the best idea in the world. So what I'm thinking of doing is getting a little piece of wood like this, okay? And just sticking it in here to spread those parts apart. It's a matter of just getting it to exactly the right size. I've got a fair amount of these little sticks, so I can play with it. Very soft wood. There, like this. Okay. Just, I don't know if that's the right size or not, but it's in there. Let's see what happens. Now, well, what happens is that it's in the way. It needs to go up higher. It was a good idea. That turned out to be not a great idea, to not be an effective idea. It was like, let's try this and see if it'll work. And then so far it's not. The little piece of wood is getting in the way. Why is it? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be in the way at all. I don't understand what's happening here. Oh, okay. Now I see what's happening. It's get a tinier piece of wood, a toothpick. I have some narrower stuff, but it's bumping up against here, against the engine. Maybe this will be out of the way. Okay. Actually, that's going to work. I need to get it exactly right. Okay, which it pretty much is. It's close to being actually right. But you can see that and I can feel it. It is, it's aligned. And if I cement it on like this, okay, I cement it on with that little piece of wood in there until the cement is very well set, until it's very, very well set, then I should be able to just like clip that piece of wood out. It's just a toothpick. Wow, I might have a solution. Maybe. But it does. It seems to work okay. So I'm going to just put this back in the box of parts that I don't want to mess up. Something worked. I mean, it looks like it's going to work. So what I'm going to do is, now I've got this little magic toothpick here, is I still need to paint the inside of this aluminum, and painting it with that in there is not going to be a really good idea. But it is almost exactly the right size, so I'm going to preserve it. I'm going to put it in the box. That's going to be the box of things there. And when I get around to actually putting this together, if I remember what I was doing, instead of going, what is that little piece of toothpick doing there? If I remember what I was doing, I will know what it was. Now I'm just shuffling stuff around. Right. So what was the weather like during your barbecue? I'm assuming it cooled off because you said it was the next day after it cooled off, so it was safe outside again. Just chatting with Aman Ishtar here about their trip to Germany. Well, but first, I'm going to do a but first thing here. I've got the fourth clamp. I've got 3 on the wheel. And now I've got a 4th one, and I keep moving it around because I don't want to misplace it. And I know if I place it somewhere, it will be misplaced. And I'll put it over here with the pliers there. No, I'll never remember where it was. Okay, the inside of this is going to be painted aluminum because the body of the car is made out of aluminum and only the outside is painted green. And so I'm just going to do that. And it might take 2 coats, as you've seen with this paint in the past. Sometimes it takes 2 coats. Oh, yeah, there was going to be a but first. So I measured the decal stripe, and also, oh, yeah, I'm trying to remember which part I need. Got stuff everywhere. So the stripe was 1/4 of an inch, which is 6.35 millimeters. And I wanted a nice straight line, right? And one way to get that is to just have a single piece of tape rather than trying to line it up on both sides. You know, put a piece of tape down and like a 3.5, 4 millimeter tape on one side and then line it up and keep it together. So I found 6 millimeter tape, but it looks really narrow. But then, you know, when I put it on, It is just the tiniest bit narrow. It just really is. That less than half a millimeter actually looks. Okay, I'm looking for I think they're in this box. Okay, that was almost a disaster. I was doing something dumb. I was trying to find the decals. I was grabbing the box with the decals in it. And, instead of turning around and reaching, I was reaching behind me and almost knocked everything down. I'll do it right this time. I think the decal with the stripe is in here. There's two sets of decals. One came with the kit, which is historically inaccurate. And the other one was an aftermarket decal, which is historically accurate. This is the aftermarket one. That has the correct SO for the very beginning, the sponsor decals, and the 82 and the little Lotus thing for the nose. Okay. So this is the historically correct one. That's an aftermarket thing that the seller got to me. There it is. This is the historically inaccurate decal that comes with the car. How much narrower? Yeah, dang it. It is. See, this tape, you look at it, is just it's just a tiny bit too narrow. Okay, so what I can do, what I'm going to end up doing, I think this will be okay, is I can do one or two, well, I can do several things. Okay. One is I can just cry and just say, oh, no, this is so sad. I can't just have a narrower stripe. Okay. As you can see, I don't know, I'm going to move this in way close so you can see what I'm dealing with here. If you look at the green bit, here, I'll just use it on this little bit here. If you look where the green is the width of the tape. As you can see that when it's on there, there's a little bit of yellow on either side, totaling less than half a millimeter. I mean, this is really close. So one thing I can do is I can just have a slightly narrower stripe using this tape. Okay. It's slightly narrower stripe. I can make a stripe using this tape and then use this other tape that I have and extend it on either side just a little bit. Okay. So I can put a piece of tape down exactly where I want it, nice and straight. And then take another piece of tape. I've got some like 2 millimeter wide tape and just extend it on either side. Or I can put this tape on slightly off center, okay, and extend it just on one side. You can see there, you can see how slightly, see the yellow on either side? Yeah, you can see it. That's how much wider this needs to be. So again, I can just make it narrower. I can put it down like this and then extend it a minuscule little amount on either side by lining up these tiny strips of tape on either side, or I can put this on off center and put a piece of tape down just on one side to make it wider. And even though it'll be more work and the chances of having a wiggly edge are higher if I do it like this and try to extend it on either side, putting it off center increases the chance of it simply being in the wrong place. So I'm not quite sure what to do. All of the tapes come in millimeters. They don't come in inches, and it needs to be 1/4 of an inch, not 6 millimeters. So I'm not really sure what to do. I think maybe what I'll end up doing is practicing. I may end up, what I might want to do is just practice, maybe on this part, for example, because the stripe goes across here, is I could practice either the two-sided extension or the one-sided extension. But in either case, it's definitely too narrow. You can really see it here. The stripe is supposed to be pretty much the same width as that little protuberance, okay? And you can see that it's just a little too narrow. Okay, this is what I'm actually going to do is I've got the tail cone ready to be striped. I'm going to let the stripe be a little narrower, tiny bit narrower than it should be. Okay. So when you put it on here like this, there's still going to be a nice yellow stripe down the front. But it'll be a fraction of a millimeter too narrow. But I'm not sure that that's going to be noticeable. Well, before I do the nose of the car, okay, before I do the part that's really going to show, okay, this, you can see how the stripe, you can see the protuberance I was talking about there and how the stripe goes right to the edges of it, and this doesn't quite. Before I do this, I'm going to do this, which has a little stripe right here, and the tail cone. And if worse comes to worse, for example, if the stripe it just looks too narrow on the tail, then I hate to do it, but I can take the paint off and start over, or I can just reprime it over the yellow, and do it over. Well, that was disappointing, but yeah, it's just like driving almost half an hour to a place in 100-degree heat to try to do electronic recycling and then find out that, oh, by the way, we have great news. We're not here anymore. Okay. And now my envelope is breaking. What is with this? What is with everything today? I like to keep it in here because it keeps it clean and it's labeled and I know what I'm dealing with. Yeah, so then I went and picked up tape and I bought a whole roll of 10 millimeter wide tape. And then I got back and the first thing as I put it away, kind of put it away, the first thing I see is that I've already got a roll of 10 millimeter wide tape. So now I've got a lot of 10 millimeter wide tape, probably like the whole lifetime supply. And that didn't work. I set it down on an angle and it just slid away. Okay. Yeah, there's no place to hold this either, is there? Yeah, I'm just making do with a whole lot of stuff. What I'm going to do is, instead of trying to hold it on that, I'm going to use some of my wide tape. I just use the 10 millimeter stuff because I've got so much of it now. Do this. And let the tape hold it while I paint it. Aluminum. There it is. Oh yeah, yesterday was just like that. It just started. It just started wrong. And we went out to a market and they didn't have what we wanted, so we went to another place. It did. So it's been like that, you know. It didn't work and then it did. It didn't work and then it did. But the midday part, when I was, you know, trying to do electronic recycling to a place that turned out not to exist anymore, or at least not in the location where it was. And then having the garage door break, but then, you know, it was just one of those days. And so I'm being cautious today because if that carried over, if that kind of thing carried over, I could be having real problems with the stuff I'm working on. So far it's been okay, but the next thing I'll be doing after I put this aluminum paint on, and hopefully not spatter all over, just spattered, didn't get it on my fingers, or at least not where I can see it, so it's probably somewhere where I'm not seeing it. Yeah, that's why I'm being kind of cautious about what I'm doing today, because I don't want it to be like yesterday when everything I touched kind of went bad. So after I'm done putting this first coat on here, I'm going to set this aside, and I'll try to keep it on camera so you can watch paint dry. Always a cool thing to do. Is I'm going to start working on all those little bits of plastic that are in here that need to be cleaned up. What I mean by cleaning up is I need to get rid of the little protrusions that adhere, that are still on there from the sprue to which they were attached when they were injection molded. Okay, so there's that. Get the brush clean. So it looks like once again I'm spending a good deal of time getting practically nothing done. It's only 11. groaning because, yeah, I know I wasn't getting much accomplished at all other than, what did I do today? I put some things on sticks. I clamped the wheel. I painted the inside of something. I tested the tape and can't decide exactly what I'm going to do with it. These will be painted green. Am I going to need that box again? I might try to do the raised Firestone insignia on the tires again. Okay. Yeah, I'm just pushing things out of the way so that they're in the way somewhere else. What I'm going to do is get this little tray. I've used this tray before, quite a lot actually, especially with the Apollo model and the submarine. Is as I manipulate these little bits, I'm going to do it inside of this tray because odds are really very high that I will drop them or that they'll just pop out of my fingers. And if they do, then they'll hopefully land in the tray and not go flying off the workbench onto the floor or something. I can't guarantee that it will be that. No guarantees, but that's the effort. Okay. I'm going to do this. I don't want them just flopping around loose. I'm going to put them all in here. And as I finish them, I'm going to put them in here. Okay. So that way I've only got one out at a time. I'm going to start with the velocity tubes. Yeah, making that sound again. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. It's really tiny, but the chrome plating, as I rotate this, the chrome plating isn't even. It's just like all wiggly. There's little bumps and lumps and everything on it. So what I really should do is I should take the chrome plating off of these, the whole outside as much as I can. The inside, I'm just going to have to paint and hope the paint adheres. And then here, right there, you can probably see it. There's that's where the sprue attached. And I have to be very careful taking it off because I don't want to this to become non-circular. Yeah, and then there's what is that? It's a big flaw, a big extra. Basically it's a lump of chrome plating that's keeping the surface from being even. It's almost like there's it's almost like there's an indentation on there. Oh, geez. Okay, is that what happened? It's the thing I've been trying to not have happen. I'm not sure. I can feel it. You probably can't see it. On the side opposite where the sprue was attached here, as I run my finger across it, there is a divot in the top of one of the velocity tubes. It's just an indentation. And it doesn't go all the way through. And I don't know, yeah. God, filling that in, that would be a trick. But these things are right on the top of the engine. They show they're covered. Okay, there's these things. These things actually cover them. Okay, but just always something. Okay, well, I'm going to start on one and see how it goes. I'm going to try to take off the part where it was attached to the sprue. I don't know how much sanding this is going to take. Okay, I'm using 800 grit to start with. I could use a file, right? But I don't want to make a mess of it. So I'm just going to gently sand this away and hopefully get it in shape. Yeah, and they're round and slippery. So I'm wondering, I don't know how well these things are going to fit. The 1960 Ford car did not have these covers, and so the car on the cover of the box. Here, I'll show you. So the model on the cover has them exposed, okay? But the real car has these scoops on them, the air intake scoops, these things that go here, which are, here and here. And so on one hand, you might say I'm wasting my time messing around with these because they're going to get covered up. On the other hand, depending on how those fit, I could just put them on without cementing them. I could put them on without cementing them and then take them off so that you can see these little tubes that I'm going to meticulously sand down and paint instead of having them be chrome. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go. What I do know is that I'm going to be spending a good deal of time doing this during this stream in anticipation of however this is going to go later. And like I said, the chrome plating on this is just very bad. It's nice and shiny, but it is very uneven. So I'm just going to sand it off. Again, using up a whole lot of my time and yours, taking off flawed chrome plating from a part that should never have been chrome to begin with. So not only should this never have been chrome to begin with, but the box top actually brags about it. It doesn't say everything that you can imagine and can't is chrome plated on this model, but it did say that these specifically are chrome plated, like it's a big deal. Now, I suppose, like if this were a hot rod kit, of a hot rodded vehicle model where everything in the engine compartment is chromed, that would be a thing to brag about. It's like, oh yeah, we chrome plated all these parts, just like the real car would have been excessively chrome plated. It's almost like it was built that way. that the designers were thinking that. But that's not what this is. This is coming off okay anyway. And then I want to take it off here too. This is where it cements in, and the chrome plating is going to get very, well, I might end up having to use contact cement on that. Okay, well, this is the kind of thing, that's just tedious and probably a total waste of time because the parts aren't going to be visible anyway once the model is put together correctly. But it's now a time when I should find something to historically mutter about. I talked a lot about, watching races in the late 50s and mid to late 60s, because there was a racetrack in our city, and they would race there. They had both the big cars, which were the kind that they ran at Indianapolis. Okay. That later became IndyCar. It wasn't then, it was just big cars. Kind of weird, but that's what they called them. To differentiate them from the midgets and the sprints, which were different sizes of cars and ran on different kinds of tracks. And they also had stock cars, which were actually stock cars, lightly modified with engines and suspensions. Okay, there's one. Yay. 1 out of 8. Yeah, it's the same thing on all of these. This one, they all have an imperfection on the side opposite where the sprue was attached. It's just amazing. This model kit was actually made in the mid 70s. It's not an original. Well, I mean, it's an original repro. It's an original reissue. The original was issued, closer to the time that this car actually ran, which was it ran in 1965. And so the one I had built when I was young would have been the original issue. I don't know if those even exist anymore. Maybe. But this was a reissue that was made in the mid 1970s, I think using the original molds. But what they did was they added some parts like these, okay, and the radiator to make it a little more historically accurate. Because when I saw the box top and I saw that they didn't have the covers over the velocity stacks, I thought I'd have to get Alexis to actually reproduce them on the 3D printer. And then I found them in the box. Yay. And I thought I was going to have to fabricate some sort of radiator to go into the nose of the car, but that was in the box too. And it doesn't show up in the instructions anywhere, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, so we saw these cars actually run back when they were actually running. So yeah, so this kit was made in the 1970s, so it's actually it is a vintage kit. I don't know if there's been a more recent reissue or not, but this one was a 1970s reissue of the original model. And I was actually a little torn about starting this. Not that I didn't want to, because it is kind of historic, and it's a nostalgia thing for me because it's redoing something I did when I was much younger. But the reason I was hesitant is that the kit I had was still in its cellophane wrap, right? When I bought it, I got a good deal on it, I guess, when I bought this thing probably 15, 18, who knows how long ago. Oh, geez. One thing are there no mold seam? Usually there's seams, the molding seams on these things, where the molds come together and the plastic oozes out a little bit. I'm actually not seeing that, which is kind of weird. I'm a little concerned that I'm missing something. Maybe, yeah, there it is. That's actually it. There's that line of chrome that's not coming off. I'll have to go back to the other one and see if I missed it. So when these parts are made, they're injection molded. And that means that there's two halves to the mold, right? And they don't fit perfectly. And so there's this little, usually always, especially on these round parts, a little raised ridge where the plastic oozes out between the two halves of the molds. I haven't built a kit that was made recently, so I don't know if that's still an issue or not. Okay, the submarine I made was a kit that was actually from the 1960s. The kits I used were they were all started, so they were cheap, relatively cheap. And they were, badly molded like this. Sometimes not only does plastic ooze out between the two halves of the molds, but sometimes the two halves of the molds don't match up. And so the two halves of the parts don't match up. That happened on the submarine, especially with the smallest pieces, that there were quite a few where the two halves of the mold had not matched up. And so I not only needed to sand away little bits of lines between where the plastic oozed out, but I had to sand it down so that the two halves matched up. Yeah, building these models, I spent a lot of time filling in circles which exist for reasons totally unknown to me. Just these either raised or indented little circles show up on parts all over the place, and not always in an invisible location. This one has chrome exuding all over the edge. Yeah. Well, what I was saying is that I was somewhat hesitant to start this model because the kit I had was a 1970s reissue, and in absolutely mint condition. It had like the original price tag on it, and then it had for the sale price because it became an old model. I think originally it was, I forget exactly, it was like $4 or something, and then the resale price was 10 something. Okay, that was added on later. So because it was not used, because it was old, the price has actually gone up. But then I looked on eBay, and I was just curious. It was like, how much are these things worth now? And it was like $50. And so it was, do I build this model or try to build it? And, because it's kind of a cool model and it was a historic thing. And as you can see, it's requiring a lot of work and modifications and stuff to make it look okay. Do I do that because it's kind of a cool model? Or do I just resell it? Because I know I didn't pay it even half of that much when I bought it. It was a difficult choice, but finally one day it was just like, okay, that's it. I got out the X-Acto knife and slit the cellophane, and that just destroyed the value of the model significantly. And now I'm spending forever trying to get it built. At the pace it's actually getting built. You saw that when I was fitting the engine cover and finding out it didn't fit and stuck in a toothpick in order to make it fit. Okay, that kind of thing. You could see that I've actually probably completed more than half of this model. The bits that are left are, a lot of little sort of quasi-cosmetic things like these velocity tubes for the engine and the filler caps for the oil and the gas for fuel and oil. The big deal, the most difficult deal that needs to be done, besides getting the tops and the bottoms to fit together and match, is getting the stripe painted. And as I discovered, the tape that I bought is not perfect. I'm gonna, that might delay things. So if this doesn't, if there's delays because I'm trying to get the stripe painted right, assuming my technique of painting it yellow, see, that's why I put it in a box, because I just dropped it, right? And it fell down on the paper towel and didn't bounce and didn't fly off onto the floor somewhere where it would be lost forever. Yeah. So if I just have to delay while I'm trying to find the right tape or the right technique or something, I do have other things to work on, like my maxi size figure of me, my character from the Dungeons and Dragons show. What a good time to advertise it. Dice and Dungeons puts on a Dungeons and Dragons show, which is the main point of Dice and Dungeons. It's been going on for a very long time. There's well over 100 episodes up on YouTube. You can catch up on it and get to know our characters. It's a really good show. It's not just watching people play D&D in their basement. It's a well-produced show, and our characters are really fun. And we try to do our best to, when we're being our characters, stay in character, which I think we do pretty well. Our DM is an amazing voice actor. She's really, really good. Sometimes we don't have to do anything at all. Okay, we just sit there and watch our DM do one character after the other. But she's pretty amazing at it. So you need to catch our show. And so I'm talking about that, not just to make sure that you catch our show, which you should do, okay, but because I went off on a little tangent saying that if for some reason I run out of things to fill the stream while I'm working on this model. I can work on, I'll show it to you in a minute. I can work on me. This is a maxi, this is the minifig that I started with. So that's a minifig size, right? So this is blown up like 4 times that size. And I have my armor. And I started painting this because there was a lull in the production of whatever I was working on at the time. So this is getting to the point where I need to paint the armor and do some shading and stuff on it, and start working on the detail. I got the flaming longsword. That's my weapon. I got that painted. I got the face done. I need to do some shading on the face to make it look a little bit less cartoonish. I got the hair pretty good. I think that came out okay. So if I don't have velocity tubes to sand like I'm doing here today, or things to paint, then I will work on that. And in the absence of anything else, I've got some sort of giant ogreish kind of beast that I can paint too. I got 3 of these done. Well, this is a good time killer. Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm getting these parts so that the chrome plating doesn't create all sorts of flaws, so that the sprue attachment doesn't show. These parts will be largely hidden once they're assembled, which makes it, a little safer to work on them because I can't mess them up that much then. Or if I shouldn't say that. If I mess them up, it won't be that obvious. Although I'm doing my best to not mess them up. Okay. Probably after I prime them, which will be a little bit of a challenge because they're all so tiny. After they're primed, I'll probably see that I missed some spots. I've said this over and over and over, is that the chrome plating, everything is so shiny, it's hard, and it's so uneven. The reflections are uneven. It's really hard to tell. I mean, I can tell by feel, but I can't see, like, if it's out of round or otherwise misshapen. Yeah. And, I'll just show you again, like, how uneven the chrome plating is. It's like wrinkly. So it's just poorly done. I'm going to have to start. This is getting close enough to being done. Close meaning probably, by Halloween it'll be done. When we're probably, I'm not going to be gone that much. And so, like I had been in the spring, there'd been away a lot, it seemed, and wasn't streaming regularly. And I only, other than spray painting parts, like with primer or the color, my tendency is to do everything, no matter how tedious and uninteresting both. Just, I do it on the stream because I got other things to do when I'm not building the model, right? So this is when I work on the models. So the Savoia, if you want to go back and watch that, the Savoia actually came together relatively quickly. Okay. And it actually got completely finished, just like this. I mean, these things do end up being finished, believe it or not. It's kind of a surprise to me, even. The submarine got done. The Savoia got done. The Apollo is really close to being done, and I just haven't done the last little bits. And I keep putting it on my to-do list, and then I don't do it, which is to print out some stickers to apply to the control panels so that they look not like just pieces of plastic. And I have them ready to go. I just don't get around to doing it. So these things actually, always surprising to everybody, do get finished. Yeah. My fingers aren't working now. I'm running into the molding seam on this, which I can see as I rotate this, but it's hard. I can't grab it in the right place. So this too will eventually get finished. A while ago you would think, no, nothing is ever going to get done on this, but now I've got the whole lower chassis with the front and rear suspension actually assembled in that box over there. There. Ole, hi. Thanks for dropping in and saying hello. And the place that you recommended looks absolutely gorgeous. And I wish I could, someday, I don't know, maybe actually go out and see it. But thanks for dropping in, and have a good dinner. What are you going to have? If you don't mind my asking. Nope. Maybe they're gone. I might have missed looking up while I was focusing on these stupid little velocity stacks. Ah. Oh, hi. Okay, that sounds actually quite good. Yeah, it is. It's really pretty. And I can see why you love it. Copenhagen was kind of fun. It was a really touristy city. So being a tourist, we did tourist stuff. We went to Tivoli and went to one of the museums and took the harbor boat ride like everybody else did. Took pictures of the Little Mermaid that turned out to not be very good. And it's like, why? Oh, really? So you could just like pop in, not if, not that you aren't incredibly busy. You just go there. Well, that's pretty lucky. I have to say, you've got a beautiful location if you can get there that easily. But I could see that, unless you wanted to be a tourist, Copenhagen wouldn't be that. It'd be like any other place where there's way too many tourists living in a tourist place. Just wouldn't be that much fun. That's why people like in Venice and Barcelona and things want to keep putting up signs saying tourists go home. And it was great visiting those places, but I could see how just the overwhelmingness of it. Yeah, so we had. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, you need to do that. They need to experience it. That's your excuse. is not that you want to re-experience something you did when you were young, but you wanted to make sure that your children had the same experience you did. Oh, I agree. I mean, I can understand that. Like we were there for maybe 3 days, I think, and it was great being a tourist along with all the other tourists. Well, I have to say it wasn't all that great because we went to Tivoli because we just needed to, because actually where we were staying was like 3 blocks away from the entrance, which is right across from the train station. It's weird. We were kind of shocked by that. You get off the train and there's the gate. And it was an amusement park. It was a fun thing to do once. But boy, it was crowded with people who were obviously being students. Sky Mountain, yes. Well, when we were in Tivoli, we had cotton candy. That's the thing we always do when we go to a fair, is because it's really it's, and I got 2 of them because one for me and one for my wife, and then they turned out to be just gigantic, and almost but not quite got sick from eating too much sugar, and then finding a place to eat because all the tourists were it's tourist food. But yeah, it's absolutely a tourist magnet, which is really fine for people who are doing tourist stuff, but not if you want to have a relaxed time. So I'm glad I had a chance to experience it, but Sky Mountain looks much better. Oh, even better. That's right. I mean, you can just go there especially in the summer when the days are nice and long, like they are now. If the boats keep running that late. So definitely need to do the old steamboat. Do you have to get those tickets way in advance, like the steamboat? Because I know places around here, if it you get timed tickets for a certain day and a certain time for things that are kind of popular. There's an old baseball player and baseball coach. His name was Yogi Berra. Yeah, seriously. That's why Yogi Bear was named Yogi Bear. Okay, this guy was actually Yogi Berra, and not named after the cartoon. It was his name. The cartoon stole his name. And he used to have he was famous for just having great aphorisms. Like it's. Oh yeah. Well, that's right. You're much further north even than we are here. You keep forgetting that in the States, the latitudes are really different. And so where we are in the Midwest is actually at the same latitude as Rome. Seriously. Right here around the Great Lakes. So you're much further north, so your days are really nice and long. We're happy because there's twilight just after the solstice here. Twilight lasted until like almost 9:30, almost 10 o'clock. But if you're sunset, right? Well, that's your task. That's your homework, is to go out and get those tickets so that you can enjoy that with your children. If there's ever a time when your children aren't doing something else, because I know you're so busy. with all of their sports. But yeah, it looked like an amazing. Yeah, it stays twilight then, doesn't it? All this time of the year around the solstice. It's not like midnight sun where the sun just never sets, but it doesn't ever really get dark. We had the ability to visit Iceland several years ago. When was it? In May? I think it was in May. It was before the tourist season really started, so it wasn't very crowded at all. It was really nice. And we had incredibly beautiful weather. Everybody was talking about how nice the weather was. It was like in the 60s most of the time, and the sun was shining. Um, Everybody was eating outside the restaurants. It was great. It was just really fun. We got to see the geysers and do whale watching and visited the puffins, but it didn't ever get dark. Yeah. And I actually really like that. The rest of my family has trouble sleeping if it's light out, but I actually kind of like sleeping when it's still light. And so it didn't bother me at all. But yeah, that's really cool this time of the year. But then I guess during the winter it's pretty dark a lot, isn't it? I'm having trouble seeing where the sprue was attached, and even trying to feel the little bump. It's kind of hard to do with the glinting of the chrome. I guess I'll find out after I prime it, and then I'll have to sand it down again a little bit. I don't want to sand it too much because then it'll be out of round, and then I'll have an indentation, which will look even uglier. That's the part that broke. That's going to be a challenge fixing that. I can't even say it broke really. There's certain parts of that Nerf bar, the rear bumper, that were never really attached. I mean, it was just barely held on with some of the chrome plating. So it's really a mess. Wow. Yeah, really far north. I know we've got that air base up there. You know, guess we don't need to talk about politics here, but it is kind of odd having a giant air base in the north of Greenland. Okay, yeah. So just right around the equinoxes is the only time when they really have sunrises and sunsets. I knew that Thule was in Greenland, but I didn't know that it was that far north. It must be way at the very, very northern part. Is what the capital Nuuk is quite a bit further south. I mean, they still have midnight sun there, I'm sure, but I wonder what it's like for the people, well, at the air base doing that. I never really looked into it very much other than knowing it was there. Um, about what people's experience is like there. Whether that's a place where people say, "Oh, I really want to work at Tool." To look up to see what they're flying there. I bet that probably this all started like during the Cold War. We probably had bombers stationed there, and maybe interceptor aircraft. I was always an airplane buff, um, because my dad was in the Air Force and my uncle were during World War II. But and I really paid attention to what everybody was flying during the Cold War, but I never paid attention to what was stationed where. No, that's very yeah. That's that's pretty far up there. I'm going to have to look at a map now. I can't believe I wasn't curious enough to check that out before. Especially with the to-do going on about Greenland now, is looking at the map to see where Thule is. So you're going to get out to the steamboat this summer? Now that you've talked about it, you're going to make some plans to get out and take the trip. I'm making plans to make one more trip this summer. I'm going to be gone for a week. Oh, like around July 7th through the 15th, something like that. I can't remember the July 7th through the 11th. Just that's coming up pretty soon. It's just in a couple of weeks. I'll have to remind myself and everybody else that I'll not be streaming for a week, during which time, since I won't be streaming, I won't be working on the model. So almost as much will get done on this as if I was. I have to I have to just acknowledge, that. That's really neat. So they have a beacon that marks the sunrise. So how did she survive the winters there? Okay. I imagine that took some getting, not even, I can't even say getting used to, but some tolerance for darkness at least. cramped my leg. That wasn't good. I imagine. I mean, no matter how light it is indoors, the artificial light is just never the same. Yeah, and if it is an American air base, there was a lot of alcohol too, I'm sure. That doesn't help. I can say that because my uncle was in the Air Force, well, the Army Air Corps during World War II, and then the Air Force. He made a living. He stayed in for, is it 20 years? I think it was 20 years before he retired. And they partied hard on the air bases. I imagine that's something they need to be cautious about. Yeah, I don't know how I would react to that. I really like the light. Like I said, even sleeping with the sun up, like when we were in Greenland that time. I don't, I don't know. I don't know how I would react to it being dark for that long. Yeah, I imagine that would be the case. Well, yeah, if you grew up there, I mean, that's how your entire life was, right? You would, it's just what happened. And your nervous system and all the people around you would become, it makes a lot of sense that they would have been adapted to it, but someone who wasn't, I would imagine coming from the U.S., especially if they were coming from like a southern state where the days don't change that much from winter to summer. That would be a really tough thing. It's been unusually quiet. We were expecting a delivery, which would have set the dogs off, but I haven't. And they were going to be moving a piece of furniture in, so I was expecting there to be quite a commotion, but that didn't happen, at least not yet. But then, it's always like that. We will be there sometime between 9 and 4. That's helpful, right? You can't do anything else during the day because you always have to be around because you never know when they're going to show up. Fortunately, for me, I'm not involved in the delivery, so I'm able to do this. Okay. Well, thanks for dropping in. I really appreciate it, and thanks for showing me the place where you're going to be going for a trip soon. I know you're going to be getting back there soon, sometime, not this year. Have a good dinner, and maybe talk to you on Friday. Thanks so much. See you, Oli. Oh, I said this once before, kind of by accident at the end of one of the streams, but now I've decided to actually adopt this as kind of a subtitle. Is, what did you do today? Well, I got practically nothing done, but I took a long time to do it. So instead of relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons, I think what we're going to call this is Old Grumpy Guy getting practically nothing done, but taking a long time to do it. This stream today is living up to that promise. Is what I'm doing is spending a lot of time just sanding down these tiny little pieces that have very bad chrome plating on them, and will probably be actually invisible when the model is put together. So there. Sometimes in the process of building these things, just, I want everything to look pretty nice, but sometimes the parts, they just don't show. You can't see them when the thing is put together. So why spend time on it? I don't know. I'm committed to it now. I've got one more of these. Then I've got, I don't know. I have to figure out what to do with that. That thing that I just put back in there is a tiny, tiny little slip of very, very thin plastic. It's mostly just chrome plating, like an extruded piece of chrome plating with any plastic in it. That's part of the Nerf bar, they call it, which is like a rear bumper. And it's kind of, highly visible and somewhat important part of the car. But it's not attached. And it isn't even that it just broke off when I took it off the sprue. It was that the other side too. There's no integrity to the plastic. I'm going to have to mess around with that on Friday. I'm not going to deal with it today. As I'm kind of getting some of this stuff done, cleaning off the wrinkly chrome plating on these parts, hopefully getting the sprue mark. Oh, yep, that's why I'm doing it over a tray, so that when it pops out of my hand like that, it doesn't get lost. So far, the 3 times I've dropped something, I haven't lost them. Yay. The next, just all these little bits that kind of go on at the end. Sometimes, they wait until the end and then it's like, oh, this is taking a long time. Or just a silly little bit that goes on at the end that's going to be hardly visible. It can get a little frustrating. Is, the last parts end up taking such a long time sometimes. So close. And then, and then they're just little bits. Like I've got maybe 25 minutes of something to do to put these parts on, and then I can't do anything else while the cement sets. And then since I've got 3 hours in the stream, what do I do then? Fortunately, I've got other things to work on. when it gets to that part, and it will. This will eventually get to the bit where, like, I'm attaching these velocity tubes, and that's all I can do. That's just that will be it. And then I'll have to either just go on to something else or just not do anything at all. I don't know. We'll see what happens. What will happen? Well, I tell you what will happen is that when I get to that point where during the stream there isn't that much that can be done because I'm just putting tiny little bits on that need to cement set before I put more tiny little bits on, and then fix something that broke. Probably there'll always be that. I'll be working on the large size model of me. This is so weird. This is supposedly, this little bit is the transistorized ignition. It's just a box. And I don't even know why it's metallic. I think on the real car, it's like black. So I'm gonna paint it a really dark metallic color because chrome is definitely inappropriate, historically inappropriate, and even aluminum would be wrong. But it's got one of these, sprue attachments. Having just kind of a hard time, holding it and sanding it at the same time. Do it this way. A little more integrity to the sandpaper. But it's a big chunk of plastic. The edge, I probably could have used 600 instead of this 800. Even if I paint it dark, and the flaw won't show quite as much too. Every once in a while, there's just some weird detail. Most of this model is actually pretty nicely detailed. Sometimes historically inaccurately detailed, but pretty decently detailed. And other times it's just weird. Like, why is this here? It's not right. It's not well done. So eventually, yet before Halloween, this model will be completed. And then I need to find something new. I have an embarrassingly large number of plastic models here. When I retired, which is now a long time ago, okay, I thought, well, I'm going to be bored silly, not having to work and commute, right? So why not just revert to my childhood and build plastic models in the basement? That's what I used to do to stay out of trouble. I shouldn't really say that. I never really got into trouble because, in order to get into trouble, I'm going to digress here. In order to get into trouble, you have to have kind of like imagination and initiative, right? You have to be able to think of the thing that will get you into trouble and then actually do it. And I was missing the imagination part in a major way. I didn't even think of things that would get me into trouble, much less do them. Seriously, I was incredibly boring that way. Kind of stayed boring my whole life too, actually. But as you can tell by the fact that here I am making plastic models and meandering on about being a boring kid. So, yeah. Well, yeah. So I built plastic models, not to stay out of trouble, but because I didn't have any imagination to think of anything else to do. But, yeah, so when I retired, I thought, well, why not? It's kind of a fun thing to do. It maintains a certain level of eye-hand coordination, which is important to have, especially when one's eyes stop working that well. Yeah, figure out how to prime these things. Okay, I'm going to do these 4 bits. These are gas and oil filler caps that go. Yeah, this whole thing is busted up. Yeah, it just all fell apart. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do with that. I'm not really sure. I can't even show you what I'm talking about at the moment. Okay, now these sprue marks are supposed to be out of sight, and I probably will need to test fit these after they're primed, because they're supposed to go through. Well, I can show you in a minute. If I remember what I'm talking about, I can show you how these are supposed to fit. And then in the process, find out whether they fit or not. But these are the fuel and oil filler caps that protrude through the body of the car. The sprue attachment, I'm not sure if the sprue attachment is going to show very much or not. I think I'll find that out. What I probably will do then is, yeah, priming these is going to be a little risky. Even if I tape them down, there's still a chance they could come off the tape because they're so small. There's not much contact. I'm gonna get a box, not a nice wooden box like this, just a little cardboard box, and spray paint them inside the box so that if they come loose and go flying, they don't get lost. It's a real risk with this. Because of like dropping things, right? So yes, I bought a couple of models. I thought, yeah, that'd be cool, and then I just kept buying more because those were cool models at a decent price, and I remember that plane like SR-71 or X-15 or F-104, F-106. Sometimes some of the World War II planes. Look on eBay, and then cool. They come up, and I just kept buying them. Now I got dozens of them, and I know, I have to be realistic. I'm not going to get around to finishing those. So I've got a lot of things to choose from after I finish this. I should just build small models, though, like the submarine and the Apollo. Can't display them. They're just too big. So I guess I just cover them up with paper towels or put them in a box or something so they don't just become covered in dust and become a mess, because there's no way to get the dust out of those tiny little things if they get dusty. So maybe I'll work on something small like this car or the Savoia was. The pieces that are left in the bottom here are the Nerf bar. So either this is not supposed to be here, this protuberance, okay, or there's supposed to be two of them, one on either side. And if there isn't one on this side. It might have been so badly formed. I have to see. Because if that's supposed to be like a support thing, then I have to fabricate one here. If it's not supposed to be there, that's easier. I can just take it off. It's almost tempting to not try to use that part at all. Because it's, yeah, that's really a serious problem, that particular piece. I'm not kidding. I mean, it really is a very serious problem about how to reconstruct that. So it looks like it's supposed to look and attach the way it's supposed to attach. Great. We've got a carpenter ant on the workbench. There it goes. Now I'm going to save that for Friday. Take those pieces out, take a look at the instructions and the rest of the model, and try to decide what, if anything, can be done to salvage it, to make it look like close to the way it's supposed to look. It's not going to look exactly like it should because it's just too badly broken. And it might even be one of those pieces where there's the ant. The plastic didn't fill the mold, and it isn't even the right size or shape. Yeah, but it's getting to the point now where I can begin to think about what I might do next. Some of the coolest models, are kind of are big, like the SR-71. That would be kind of a neat thing to build. Or the X-15. I might do that. For airplane models, I like to build 1/48 scale. Usually they'll come in 1/48 or 1/72, and there are some models that are really hard to find as a 1/48. Okay, and the X-15 was one of those. There were a lot of 1/72 ones, but I only found one 1/48 one, and I got it. That might be the thing I'll do next. I'll have to find a nice flat black spray paint. Because, like I keep saying, I can't use an airbrush without making an incredibly hideous mess. I mean, just beyond belief, horrible mess of paint all over my hands and everything else. But yeah, that's going to be in the running. The other one that'll be in the running, and this will end up if I did this other one would be a forever, taking a forever. Okay, so the X15, I haven't built it other than the Savoy. I haven't really built a model. It would be an opportunity to figure out how to get the two halves of the fuselage together and to make the seams disappear and get it painted nicely. The color scheme, at least, is pretty straightforward. It might be one of those where I put the decals on and then give it an overcoat. An overcoat to of like a satin paint or something, a satin clear coat, which is what one is supposed to do after the decals go on. They actually say on this one, after the decals go on, is to give it a clear coat. But I don't know, the decals go on after all of the rest of this is on. I don't know how one could do that. I really don't. Okay. I want to give this a second coat yet today. But what I'm going to do is pull this out. See, this is like an issue. It says put the decal on. Well, the decal can't go on until this is on, because I think they kind of go across the seam. Okay. And if this is on, then the seat's in, and these are put in, and everything is done, and the decal goes on. How do you clear coat this without spraying clear coat over everything? Okay, they're supposed to go on like that, and that does. I don't know what's going on upstairs. It sounds pretty dangerous. Something's getting scrubbed, or I don't know. I don't know what's happening. It's very weird. Very weird noises. Okay, well, these all fit. That's good. That's kind of unexpected. This part is all busted. It's very badly busted. It's going to have to take some significant work to get in shape. These bits are ready to be painted green. I might just do that. These bits all need to be primed. And I'm going to take some time now to, I will in a moment. After I do this, I'll put the second coat of this on. Just to get it done. Not to, as I push things out of the way, it just pushes other things out of the way, which causes, yeah, no problem. So X15, that might be a thing I'll build. It's in there somewhere, buried somewhere deep amongst all the other models. Might have to move about half a dozen things in order to get to it, but that's a contender. Got an F-22. I've got, this is pretty funny. It's a model of the bridge of the TOS Enterprise. Complete with action, with little figures of Kirk and Spock. And I'm not sure who else from the crew. And I keep threatening to do that because it's just kind of a weird, funny model. And it's not worth very much. So it's not one of those where if I open it up, it'll be, a destruction of $50 worth of value like this model was. Okay, well, that's going to look okay. Just going to take this now. I used the tape to hold it, okay, but that's all it was doing. It's not anything functional. As I'm going to put this in the process box here. Paint all over everything. And the next thing I'm going to do is clean the brush. And the next thing I'm going to do is tape down all these little bits on this piece of cardboard so I can prime them. On Friday, I'll be unclamping the fourth tire wheel combination that I clamped here. It's holding it together. And probably clean up the tires and make an effort to get the Firestone logo white again, and actually see if this yellow chalk that I found can be used to make the raised rim, the yellow stripe that is on the real tires. If I can make that be seen. But I'd like to get the Firestone back. I did that once before. It actually looked pretty good. But it's gotten messed up in the process of clamping those wheels together. Okay, these won't be too bad. They're just, on one side. Just the tops need to be primed. These bits need to be primed and then turned over and primed on the other side because they're painted on all of their sides. I need to make sure that the primer gets into the tops of these too. So I'm going to be spraying them from a pretty steep angle in this direction. Hopefully that's what will happen. Can't say I'm really thrilled with all these tiny little bits. Okay, so yeah, the X15 is a contender. I've got a plank built. I mean, seriously, it's like it's the America's Cup yacht that called the America. It was the name of the yacht that won the first yacht race. That's why it's called the America's Cup, because that's the name of the yacht that won it. I'm pretty sure that's the story. I've got that. It was one of the first models that I purchased in anticipation of being bored silly, having retired, which didn't happen. There's always something to do other than building models until I started this stream, which I'm doing on behalf of Dice and Dungeons. Watch the Dice and Dungeons show. It is an amazing It is an amazing Dungeons and Dragons show. You need to watch it. I've got that. It's another one of those, though, that once it's built, there's no way to display it. It's too long and too tall. And talk about dust collecting, all the rigging and the sails and the detail of it. I mean, if it isn't covered completely, it will be disastrous in terms of dust collection. So that's it. I do keep threatening to build the TOS bridge, the model of that. That would be kind of a fun thing to do. It'd be something to complain about because it was one of those very inexpensively made models. I opened it up once and looked at it, and the parts are terrible in terms of their build quality. I've got a B-29 that's a lot like the submarine that I built in that it's a cutaway, so you can see the internal structure of the plane, and that would be a really cool model. Except again, it's a 1/48 scale, so it's really large. It's a big model. Okay, these are going to get primed, and then I'll figure out how to paint them. And then I need to fix this somehow. Oh, yeah, I forgot about these. These are the mirrors. These are the side mirrors. And I put some filler in there, but the filler, yeah, it shrinks when it dries. I'm going to do that here at the end. I think I'll just do that. We've got a few minutes left. These are things to be painted. The mirrors were made with in the injection molding, and you can still see it. There's a divot. There's a divot in the middle of the mirror here. And the mirrors don't have an indentation. If anything, they're supposed to be convex. So I filled it in, but the filler that I use has a lot of solvent in it, and it shrinks. And I wanted to use this really hard stuff rather than the green putty because I wanted to have as close to a mirror finish as I could. And when I first put this on, it actually kind of domed up, and which I thought would be it might look pretty good in that it would be a convex mirror, but it shrank too much. So I'm going to do it again. And if I get too much on there, that's really not a problem. Sometimes doing things that are experimental is okay if it won't be a problem if it doesn't work. In this case, it won't be a problem because I'd just be sanding those down. Okay, I'd just be sanding them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the filler, just build it up again so that it forms kind of a convex bubble. Doesn't help to have a little bit of cat hair. And I'll just see how it looks when it dries. I guess I'll call it dries, when it cures between now and Friday. And maybe it'll look okay, and maybe it won't. If it does, that'd be great. If it doesn't, then I will sand it down. Mm-hmm. Find out. Find out on Friday. Creating a trash pile there. All right. So, have I accomplished anything today? I'm not sure. I cleaned these up and I got them ready for priming. These are primed and it turned out fine. And so I'm going to paint them green. I redid this and it's just not going to turn out the way I want to. So I'm going to have to end up sanding them down flat. I can already see that. I got the fourth wheel clamped. Okay. And there's some other little bits that need to be taken care of. So on Friday, I'm going to experiment with taping. If the tape had been exactly the right width, okay, well, I'm just going to experiment with taping to see if I want to just keep the stripe a little bit too narrow by using the 6mm tape, or whether I want to try to expand the width of it by putting a little piece of tape on either side or on one side. So I'm just going to get like a piece of cardboard, I guess, and just practice laying out the tape. I don't have to practice, laying out just a single strip of tape if I keep instead of 6.35mm, instead of just 6, okay? If I decide to make the stripe on the model a little bit too narrow, then I don't need to do anything more. But what I want to do is practice widening it by a half, like a 0.4 of a millimeter, a little less than half a millimeter, either by putting tape along either side of it or just on one side of it. I'm just going to play with that. So you're going to watch me, laying out tape, see what happens, and then I'll make a decision about which way to go. I'll paint these. These will be painted. These will be painted kind of a shiny aluminum color. These will be painted the picture of the engine. And that'll be painted aluminum. I'm going to tape the inside of this so that the outside can be painted yellow. It's actually going to be painted yellow because there's a little bit of a stripe back here, so it'll be just like the cone, the tail cone, which is not supposed to be laying down; it's supposed to be standing up. Yellow, taped over, painted green, turns into a yellow stripe. This needs to be taped in the inside so I don't paint over all the aluminum paint that I painted on there. So I can make this yellow just like that so that I can work on striping it. So this is just getting to this little bits of things that may end up not taking an entire stream to get through. And if there is extra time, I'll be going back to working on the figure that I was given as a Christmas gift of my D&D character. I guess I'm just going to wrap up. Make sure you watch our D&D show. I'm going to be back on Friday, continuing to work on all these little parts and working on figuring out what to do with the stripe, because as it turned out, the tape that I got that I knew was a fraction of a millimeter too narrow is visibly too narrow. One of those things. I'm going to try to fix this somehow. I don't know if it's fixable or not. I'll do my best to see what I could do with that to reconstruct it, or actually not reconstruct it, but construct it in the first place because it was very badly molded. Look at the instructions, see what needs to be done. a large part of this is waiting to get the stripe painted on. I mean, actually, if I can get the stripe painted, I could do the rear end. Yeah, I mean, the rear end could be assembled before I put together the front end. The injection tubes go on here. Yeah, it's just weird. Okay. Well, that was just a sigh of, how do I get the last bits of this together, in what order, and how not to make a mess of it right near the end. And the biggest part is now going to get the stripe painted, and I'll be practicing that on the tail cone, because if it goes badly, like I said, it's a nice smooth surface, there aren't any exterior details like rivet marks and stuff like that, and I can just sand off the paint and start over, or reprime it and start over, which I can't do with the rest of the pieces. So I want to make sure I'm getting it right before I do that. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. Watch our D&D show. Okay, come back on Friday, and once again watch not very much getting done, but taking a long time to do it with Dice and Dungeons. Take care, everyone. See you then.